Cosplayers, what's one cosplay you will never do again, and why? Ariel. I love the Little Mermaid, and I love the costume I made for her mermaid form, but it's just been a cosplay that creeps have ruined for me. I literally got to the point of having to prosade my bikini top to my chest and wear pasties in case someone tried to rip it off. I have been groped, had hands stuck down the front and back of my costume, being kissed, and have heard all of the sea-related dirty jokes in existence. I officially decided to stop after one incident at a local convention where someone was trying to pull off my top and I slapped him hard enough for him to be thrown off balance. He fell into the water feature and hit his head. Police had to be called to figure out if it was self-defense or assault. I hung up my seashell bra and tail after that they at it. Wow, this blew up more than I was expecting. Thank you all so much for your concern and support. To those asking, no, I didn't press charges. I didn't have the time or money to invest in it, and I was so shaken up from injuring another person that I just wanted to forget it. I won't deny that I sometimes do regret not pursuing it, but it's really hard to think rationally after something like that. The guy was bleeding. I was pretty certain I broke my hand and his face. In the moment, I was scared that I'd be charged with assault. Irrational, I know, and that opening a claim against him would result in me facing the repercussions. I can't really distill down all the emotions and fears I experienced in the moment, but I do know that was my biggest concern, next to cost. Edit 2. Apparently this got featured on a Reddit post compilation video. I guess that's a new type of internet fame. But seriously, please don't throw people's comments into a video without consent. I was venting here, but now I'm worried that the person I mentioned might find it and track me down. Also, hi, dude man from YouTube. Proof that the person you interacted with was indeed me. Any version of Harley Quinn. Nobody knows how to behave around Holly. Not thirsty Harley fanboys. Not Joker cosplayers that are a little too in character. Not neckbeards who want to quiz you on your Harley knowledge. Not other Harley cosplayers who have an issue with what version of Harley you picked or how accurate your cosplay is. Every Harley I've met has been given hell for their cosplay for one reason or another. I only did Lego Harley twice and got minimal shit for it, but I've met multiple Suicide Squad Harleys who were literally suicide baited online and pushed around at cons by people who hated the character. Never again. Edit. Instead of just posting a cheesy thanks for the Sylv, how about I expand on my experiences as a Harley cosplayer? I did 2 events as Holly, a convention as an attendee, and Harley Quinn Day at a comic book shop as a paid performer. My cosplay was handmade, safe for the wig, and lacking in Lego Harley's pads, but the colors were spot on and the wig was on point. At the con, not a whole lot of problems. I had a creepy Joker latch onto me all con, repeatedly getting up on my face and wrapping an arm around me, but at no point was I genuinely fearful due to the fact we were still in a crowd. I had a handful of people ask me which Harley I was, or go out of their way to critique my original design for her, before I went on to explain that I was Harley from the Lego movie. At no point did I feel like I should shelf Holly. It wasn't that bad. I had a worse time that weekend when I cosplayed a podcast character that nobody was able to identify correctly. Working the event is what caused me to shelf the cosplay. I was working alongside 2 other Harleys, meeting and greeting people coming in for Harley Quinn merch and taking pictures. We were promised $20 each for 3 hours of our time. Wasn't god awful. Most cosplay performers do what they do for fun and will do certain events for free if they like the gig. In the email it said we could choose store credit or cash up front. Remember that point? I got to talk to the other 2 Harleys between photo ops and they started telling me horror stories. One mentioned she had been posted on cringe pages, which lead to people hunting her down to harass her and suicide bait her, all because she cosplayed Suicide Squad Harley, and people are quick to call Suicide Squad Harleys fake fans or say they are not real cosplayers. The other mentioned that she was touching up her makeup in the bathroom at con and someone cosplaying the original Harley grilled her, saying she'd never do Suicide Squad Harley because it's trashy. By the end of the event, the owner of the comic shop stiffed us. He gave us each 3 $5 coupons to the shop. I had to pull up the email to prove he'd offered us cash. After all of that, I was done with Harley. It's a shame I splurged on the wig. Back when the Assassin's Creed games were in their heyday, I cosplayed as one of the assassins with a few of my friends who were also assassins. For example, one of us was Connor, one was Ezio, another was Edward, etc. I spent a lot of time on those costumes and the props, so I have no problem saying they looked good. We got a lot of attention, including getting stopped for literal hours at the PlayStation booth for pictures, because a few other assassins joined, and we had the whole family point the problem. I'm a girl, and a short one at that. My friends who cosplayed with me are tall boys, so at the risk of looking like a pop vinyl next to them, I had to wear boots with a significant heel on them to help give me some height. It was brutal. We only got tickets for the one day, and it was hours spent on our feet in poses, and we had to stop every few feet for pictures. Don't get me wrong, the pictures were awesome, it made all the time and effort worth it. But I was in absolute agony. At one point, when we all took a bathroom break, I took off my boots and put my throbbing feet on the cold tile floor. Judge me all you want, it felt amazing. Thankfully some people who wanted to take pictures with me noticed I was in pain and out of costume and just chatted with me and waited to take pictures until after I got the boots back on. I had to call it quits early on and missed out on looking around as much as I would have liked. Even trying to leave the huge convention center was slow because I kept getting stopped. When I finally got back to the hotel and took my boots off, I had huge blisters on the top of my feet, on my heels, everywhere. It ruined the rest of the weekend for me. A couple of years later I went as Lara Croft from the newer games and got to wear flat, grippy boots with a nice gel insert. It was heaven. I flat out refuse to do cosplays with high-heeled shoes. It's just not worth it. If a cosplay isn't comfortable, I'm not going to enjoy wearing it, and it's not going to come out of the closet as much. My basic rules that a cosplay must meet: flat, comfortable shoes, pockets for cell phone, and money plus cards won't overheat. My Peggy Carter ended up as an ivory blouse with navy sailor pants and red ballet flats, and I have no regrets. Edit. My #1 shoe tip to cosplayers is to buy horseback riding paddock boots plus half chaps. Paddock boots are designed to be worn while stomping around a barn all day, so they have cushioned, well-engineered soles. Half chaps are designed to make your paddock boots look like fancy to the knee leather riding boots, and do that job equally well for costumes. These are so versatile, so comfortable, and so packable. You get a nice pair of dressy black shoes, which I use for steampunk and Star Trek, and you get knee-high boots that weigh nothing and can pack flat or roll up in your suitcase. I use those for my Star Wars Sith cosplay and my pirate costume. When I was 22, I was in great shape and decided to wear a SpiderMan costume for our Halloween bar crawl. It was, very form-fitting. I had over half a dozen middle-aged women grab at my crotch. Edit. I'm aware that's blatant harassment, and under no circumstances, male or female, is it okay to lay hands on another person in that manner. However, it really didn't bother me, at least not on a deep emotional level. I was 22 and active duty in the Marine Corps infantry, so maybe my mental fortitude was different than most. All that being said, however, I did take it as a life lesson. Having this experience opened my eyes even further to what a lot of women go through. From that point on, I have changed how I approach and talk to women. Unfortunately, it took that experience for me to open my eyes, but I guess in my defense, at 22 being active duty since I was 19 and being the biggest loser in my high school, my romantic experience was nil back then. However, my mother raised me to respect all women. Dr. Frankenfurter. I shadow cast Rocky Horror for 18 years, so believe you me, my costume was screen accurate. I did add a skirt as I didn't want bulging out all over and wanted to remain a bit appropriate as family friendly con, and when I came in, so was my makeup. It was a lot of fun to start. Lots of attention, got to strut around and give attitude. But after a while, keeping up the energy was hard. When I'm cosplaying, I try to stay in the character, and so was walking. Big heels hurt after several hours. By the end of the day, I was tired and hungry. Eating would ruin the makeup, and the touch-ups looked pretty bad. I saw my photo pop up online a few times after the con with bad comments, and hell, that kinda hurt as the photos were end of the day, and I felt it looking at them. I've also retired my grey Imperial officer outfit. Two main reasons: a little too Nazi looking, which was a bit iffy. I can understand that in hindsight. Funny story about wearing it out of the con. Cabaret was playing at the nearby playhouse the day I wore it, as went straight to show after the con as my wife, and myself too. Love the show. In the costume. Bad idea, and that leads to 501st doesn't allow it. It's screen accurate, but I had some members of the 501 get on me the times I wore it, either nitpicking parts of it, or for pretending to be one of them, which I never said I was. Edited to add, thought about joining them, but the sheet I got from some of the members made me not want to. I refuse to dress as Deadpool ever again. I live the character, hate the community, because you can't go 2 seconds without some asshole running up to you and screaming about chimichangas, or telling you that you're not an actual Deadpool fan and that you're just hopping on a bandwagon. The worst part though is that people will constantly walk up and take pictures without consent. I'm alright with most pictures, like if I'm not on my way to a panel or other event. But whenever I'm Deadpool, people have to stop me. One time a group of guys walked up to me while I was in the middle of a transaction with someone in the dealer's room. They grabbed me and dragged me away from the booth because one of their friends was dressed as Rouge, and they wanted me to help her in a sexy photo shoot by having her pretend to do sexual stuff with me. All while my ex-girlfriend watched in horror with them trying to convince me to do this. They even offered me money to bend the other cosplayer over and dry hump her. Luckily, a group of friends were in the dealer room with us doing an Naruto photo shoot, and they ran over to help. Immediately said fuck it and put on regular clothes. Never again. One of my first years going to a con, I did Deadpool. I wanted to do an unmasked version and had just learned about liquid latex with toilet paper to make a rough skin point. It worked out quite good at first, but I needed a mask to last for 3 days, and applying makeup each day wouldn't work. Instead, I built a whole head mask from latex and paint, then applied latex to my skin to bond it. I used yellow contacts and darkened my eyes areas, kinda like a Batman mask, red so that it helps with the blending. It looked very amateur, but hey, it's my first con point. On the final day, the mask had been beaten up quite a bit, so I decided to seal it shut so it stays on my head throughout the last day. This was a bad idea. I was driving to the convention with my girlfriend, dressed as Black Cat, with the whole costume on including the mask and contacts. I got about halfway and had a panic attack because the mask was restricting me and I couldn't quickly take it off either. We quickly went into a 7-Eleven where we went into the bathroom, which is a single bathroom. I immediately strip off the skin suit and take my mask off with help. The panic attack turned out to be that I needed to take a monster sheet. I didn't know that the door lock was broken because some hillbilly guy walked in, might have been the attendant. He immediately regretted that decision as he saw a naked skinny dude with yellow eyes taking a sheet, while some chick is standing in the corner wearing a black latex suit, while there are swords, guns, and grenade props scattered on the floor. We all stared at each other like deer in headlights. Neither of us exchanged words, just awkwardly said oop. From then on, all cosplays I make are easily removed in the event of an emergency. Anything even mildly sexy or revealing. It's been ruined for me forever. Just one example. I was a bobblehead nurse from Silent Hill 3 with a latex prosthetic head, neck, chest, all veined up gross. I had oversized stockings on to look like my skin was sloughing off. It ain't like I'm busty, so there really wasn't functional cleavage, but some vendor kept trying to bribe me into taking off my face so he could enjoy the full viewpoint at the very least of my complaints. Motherfucker, this sheet takes an hour to apply. I'm not taking it off, so you can ogle me. I put work into this. I'm not taking it off for some damn figurine. Another example, I dressed as Grimrock Reanime from Neon Genesis Evangelion. It involved sort of like a swimsuit with a high collar, thigh-high stockings, elbow-length gloves, plus a tail cat ears. Some guy I didn't know kept following me through the con asking if I would go with him to his hotel room. Beach, what the hell are you doing? Gross. Let me enjoy wearing the design I worked so hard on. I do cosplay because I love the design, because there's something interesting about the character or the outfit I want to see if I can make. Why take that from me? Make this about my body. My body is the least interesting thing to see here. Look at my fine stitching. I worked with latex. Can't I have my hard work appreciated? I spent months making my armor for Silverness. It took me forever because it was my first time working with Butler. I really like how it looks, but it is by far the most uncomfortable cosplay I have made. I've worn it to a convention once, DragonCon. The armor rubbed in the most uncomfortable ways and gave me blisters in weird spots like my shoulder blades and thighs. I can't sit in it because the crotch armor is also made from Butler. The bow isn't that heavy, but after hours of carrying it around it feels heavier and heavier and becomes difficult to hold. I can't lift my arms all the way because of the size of the vambraces. It also hurts my feet to walk around in because of the way the armor on the boots pinches my toes. I honestly felt like I was going to pass out when I wore it, lol. Lesson learned. For future big armor builds I'm just going to use foam. I also have a better understanding now of how to size different pieces to different parts of my body so they aren't so uncomfortable. Arkham Asylum Poison Ivy cosplay. It was my first real cosplay at a convention, and it was mostly body paint. I used a special product that you could mix with any water-based paint to create custom colors. Unlike regular body paint, which could rub off, this could be set with baby powder. Except I figured eyeshadow would work the same as the baby powder and I'd be able to add more dimension with different shades of green. So while it was generally not tacky to the touch, it didn't go so well when I first walked into the con bathroom and used a toilet seat protector. The back of my thighs had pieces of the paper stuck to it. When I tried to pull off the paper, it pulled off some of the paint. I was mortified. I could not get all the paper off and now my legs but were all blotchy. Later after the convention I went out to dinner and went to a local concert. Didn't have time to change or anything. Finally made it home and was ready to shower off the day, but lo and behold the paint could not be washed off. I even used the special remover and it wouldn't budge. Took 4 days for all the paint to make it sway off my body. Looked pretty good in it though, but never again. Badoba. The local sheriff's department didn't quite understand the meme and put out an apparently serious advisory about the character after a cosplayer at Comic-Con made news. Well, the Downtown Association has a brown bear mascot who's always at the farmer's market, and one week they announced it was the bear's birthday and he was going to have all of his other mascot friends there. I figured no one would notice an extra mascot or two. So I donned my Badoba costume and a friend put on her tiger costume. She was a college mascot, actually had training in it, and always carries her costume in her trunk, because you never know when you're going to need to be a tiger, and we went running around downtown together in this college town. The reason I'll never do that again is that the visibility is close to zero in that suit, and I felt it was important to stay away from any actual children. My tiger friend had to hold my hand and guide me. The college students thought it was hilarious, and I got high fives. Difficult when you can't see, and no one else really got it. The other memorable time in that suit was at Burning Man. Wound up in a geodesic dome riding a big swing, while young women would jump on my lap and get their picture taken. They had a great time. I couldn't see a thing. And I probably walked at least 5 miles in my bare feet, which are basically like slippers. Not me, but my friend who is also my girlfriend's former roommate. The Perpetrator is probably the most complex costume she did at that point, as he from Lowell. It wasn't wearing the costume that did it, even though it was a pain in the butt to wear, as she also made stilts to simulate the shape of his legs, and that got you sore real quick. It was also kinda wonky to walk in, and we always joked she'll fall over, but that thankfully never happened, though something worse did. After she was done wearing the costume for an event, she wanted to put the helmet on display on a shelf, a very high shelf. So she's propping herself up from the couch, barely reaching the shelf, somehow managing to put it up there, and slipping, crashing her foot through the coffee table. A glass. My girlfriend and I were outside, and we get a call. It's her, and she's calling from the hospital. We go to my girlfriend's and hers apartment to pick up some stuff and bring it to her. We opened the door and oh god. She mentioned there was a mess, but this bloodbath we did not expect. It was goddamn everywhere. Pools of it. She apparently cut herself real bad, supposedly barely missing the nerves. It wasn't helped by the fact that she couldn't find her phone to call an ambulance and limped all over the apartment bleeding trying to find it. We had to stay cleaning up the blood late into the night. Everything turned out okay in the end. She's got a nasty scar, but no permanent damage. She decided the costume is cursed and never wore it again. I decided never to murder anyone because I learned hiding the evidence just ain't gonna happen. Mayuriki Otsuchi from Bleach. Spent a ton of time making it. 50 hours first version, and a mask for both first and hair horns versions and all sorts of props. I couldn't see anything without my glasses, and didn't have contacts. It was impossible to breathe in the mask, so I did a lot of walking around with it slid on top of my head, but then it was too heavy and dug into my scalp, also swapping my glasses on and off each time. I didn't have a room at that hotel or hotels, so I carried all my accessories with me. The Wearaji were ruined within like an hour, just used dreg shoes after that. His Zanpakuto is really unwieldy, and I didn't exactly make it with the lightest material. Also, putting it mildly, I'm not a thin guy, so it was a difficult balancing game between my feet and lots of positive attention I wasn't used to. Also, his prequel form could have been done with a mask, which I was excited about, but I would have had to shave my face, so I never completed it. Basically, I had a blast, but it drains my fatigue bar faster than I can regenerate, and though I had friends with me at the cons, none were Bleach fans. I've never had so much attention, but felt so lonely in my life. My next was Peter Griffin with the baby birds in his beard and Boba Fett. Way less work and just as fun. Anyone from Attack on Titan. Me and my mom, killer weeb mom, love the world of her, did Attack on Titan for our first ever cosplay, which of course included harnesses. Well, we were being not so very smart when it arrived in the mail and thought we could easily put it on. Fast forward to the morning of Comic Con at 4 AM and we are sleepily putting it on, both reading some random instruction manual for a different version, and at the same time watching a YouTube video. After nearly an hour we managed to get it on, rushed the rest of the costume on, and ran to the train, through the entire town. But that's not bad, was then, as I'm a very nervous and shy bean. Anyway, another reason why, mainly for mom, is that when you have to use the toilet, especially for the females, it's hard to pull your pants down when they're covered in harnesses. So she would practically dismantle it every few hours. Funny thing was, during the closing hour we bumped into another Attack on Titan cosplayer, and they released a massive secret on us. The bottom and top don't need to be connected. It can be covered by the skirt. Well, when we reused the cosplay a few years later we used that technique, and it saved mom a bunch of time in the loo. I did Joker for years. My partner and I met through cosplay. We both said we wanted to do Joker and Harley individually, but didn't want to be the stereotype of a single person running around in those costumes. And when we moved into our apartment we built our costumes together. She sewed, I built props. I made her a hammer so large it needed taken apart to get through doors. We are pretty well known in the local community for the characters. We've done a dozen different versions and Jack/Alicia from 89. We were pretty good, and we did everything to not be loud, annoying, intrusive, or any of the other things people often ascribe to these two characters, as well as Deadpool and a few similar characters. I won't say I will never do it again, but between the hours of macup it takes, that often need redone and more time, the social stigma, and the meme of obnoxious uncreative dudes putting themselves onto the character, and of Harley and Joker as a couple due to some people being unable to grasp reality from fictional stories and thinking we as a couple are abusive or otherwise not acceptable. I'm not planning to do the costume. I had a dozen costumes and lots of parts. I gave away or sold everything but the classic suit and Nicholson because he's the best and few people do it. The last time I did Joker it was Ninja. It required a massive wig with an aluminum brace inside. It took hours to put on, and I wore for 20 minutes due to pain. TLDR, Joker and Holly, because stereotypes and difficulty/stress. Really, any cosplay with that much macup is stressful, and made a lot of cons far less fun. 1 I forgot, I put together a TIE pilot costume for Halloween in college, wore it twice for 2 parties, and doubt I will repair or wear it. The 501st has a reputation, since which keeps me from wanting to participate. This will probably get buried, but here's my story anyways. My friends and I decided to cosplay the Wild Wild Buzzsocks from BNHA for a con this year. BNHA is already everywhere at cons, but Wild Wild is a team that's seldom done well, and rarely has, most of the members. We were only missing one character, but otherwise had the full group. So naturally, we attracted quite a bit of attention from other attendees. If you heard anything about a con this year, you may know that it was at Fair Park in Dallas. We had to Uber to the event, since there weren't any hotels that we could stay in. We weren't able to travel with the large tails on, so we had to get the tail plus harness mechanism on once we were at the convention. This pretty much involved us stripping down to spandex, stepping into the harnesses, and having to put the rest of the costume right back on. As we were trying to do this, we had to turn away multiple people who were asking for photos. We were clearly out of costume at that point in time, but I'm sure several images of me exist wearing only the top half of my costume. We also had booked a photoshoot with our favorite photographer at YINYUEPHOTO, and were running late, so we were essentially sprinting to the photoshoot location. On our way to the shoot, and also during the shoot, we constantly had to refuse photos again. This wasn't one or two people asking for photos, this was happening every 3 to 4 minutes at a time during the shoot. If you're not aware of photoshoot etiquette, please don't distract the photographer or the cosplayer during the shoot. Most photographers charge by the hour, so we need to make the most of the time we have with the photographer. After the shoot we were finally able to take photos with people, and it was impossible to walk more than 4 steps before being swarmed again. This would normally be fine, annoying, but still fine, but the con was outside in Texas June heat. One of the members of our group burns easily, so we kept trying to dart from shady spot to shady spot before we stopped for photos. It took us nearly 40 minutes to get inside from where we had our photo shoot. As soon as one picture would be taken, 3 more people would run up begging for photos. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but this can get really exhausting. We are glad you like our cosplays, and we worked really hard on them, but it's hot as heck outside, and we would really appreciate some act. The craziness didn't stop after the condo. Once we got our photos back from our photographer, we began to share them online. We posted them in a few online communities, and were immediately spammed with a myriad of comments asking where Tiger was. Now, if you're familiar with the series, Tiger is a large buff man who wears the same crop top plus skirt combo as the female members of the team. Add in a headset that looks like ears and a large posable tail, and it's a tall order to fill. Tiger is a hard character to cast, and thus, we still don't have a Tiger for our group. We mentioned this in the description of our posts, but still received over 200 comments asking about his location, or remarking that our cosplays would be much better with Tiger. Since then, I've worn the cosplay once more with another member of the group, and the comments seem to calm down when we are missing 2 characters. I seriously doubt we'll wear them again, just because of how rabid the fans can be. People were very handsy overall with the cosplays, grabbing our tails and headsets, and it makes it hard to enjoy conventions when we are constantly being stopped. Remember, cosplayers are people too. Pics for those who are curious. Sans the skeleton. It was a cool costume, no problems, comfortable. I'm in shorts, tights, a t-shirt, and a hoodie, so I have plenty of fond memories of cons, where I had kids ask me for pictures, saw people in other Undertale costumes, and even sometimes had my sister come as Papyrus. It was great. The reason I'll never do it again is because I had a drunk guy run up to me, grab my shoulders, which I already hate, and yell "It's the Grim Reaper." To this day I'm not sure why that made me so uncomfortable, but now I can't wear that costume without fear of drunken people yelling at me. That, or Tony the Clock from Miss. Had a girl ask to take a pic with me, and the entire time she kept feeling up and down my shoulders, and she asked for a pic where I was kissing her cheek. I'm a straight girl. I'm not sure what she had for Tony, but I didn't appreciate her ahem enthusiasm. Don't have anything against having feelings for characters, just don't really think it's the best idea to take those feelings out on a random cosplayer you see at a convention. Close bracket. Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, I wanted to be something that I could have fun with, so I went to DragonCon as my favorite fairy tale. So a knee-length layered skirt with the floofy slip layers underneath, black corset over a white peasant top with bell sleeves, red cloak that hit at about the same level as the skirt, tights and red Mary Jane shoes. I had my basket that I kept snacks in for me. And it was good for holding small merch. I didn't think I was dressed in any way that would be paid attention to, because I didn't think I was dressed as a popular character. Let me just say a little bit about my anatomy. I got some big boobs. And I had my friend, who is an expert at corsets, get this thing on me. The peasant top was off the shoulder and it hit just at the top of the corset and framed my titties something beautiful. I looked good. I was happy. I didn't expect that I would get groped so much by everybody. I mean full palm, no hello, just walking past me gropes. I haven't worn a corset again. To cosplays, for different reasons. Stevonnie from Steven Universe, and Arden Izunia from Final Fantasy XV. Point with Stevonnie, I'd just started transitioning, and I was visibly somewhere between guy and girl. Perfect for a character who is literally a fusion between a guy and a girl. I pulled off the cosplay at the perfect point to do so, and I didn't think I could do the non-binary look justice as I got farther along. Point on the other side of the coin, Arden was just a giant pain in the ass with every single part. The shirt is pleated every half inch, going all the way around. The vests, there's 2 of them, don't have overlapping fronts with buttons to close them. They're just single pieces cut to be vest shaped. The pants don't have a goddamn zipper, and there's a part that looks like a blue handkerchief tied around the waist, until you look closer and realize that no, it's actually a design that is actually part of the fabric of the otherwise pinstriped pants. The coat has a ton of edge detailing, which is fine, but it also has layers of light leather and extra fabric and wire and all this annoying structural crap. And just to cap the absurd bullshit that is this outfit, this asshole has 3 scarves, only one of which is likely to stay in place in real life. I know from experience, and he's wearing military gaiters, over leg warmers, over boots. I swear to God the only straightforward part of this entire outfit was the fingerless gloves and the hat. First convention I ever attended, I cosplayed as Cloud Strife. I still remember my parents getting mad at me for buying a sweater that looked exactly like his and cutting the arms off. I did the belts, baggy pants, boots, and most importantly I did the Buster Sword. I didn't know how to do metal, nor could I ever afford it, or would it be allowed, so I did it out of a giant wooden board. It looked great, I thought back then, easily 16 years ago, but it was just so freaking heavy, like you would expect a huge wooden board to be. I secured it to my back, and I managed to finish everything short of the wig that was absolutely rubbish, literally a plastic pointy cap. The thing is, I was, and still am, a scrawny guy, and in no way was my body designed to haul around a huge sword, or even hold it for more than a few seconds. I was so miserable walking around. People liked it, and kept wanting me to take it off, pose with it, or even wanted to take it from me to swing at things. Couldn't go anywhere. I loved making it, and I've kept the Buster Sword above my bed till I moved out. I think I put it out at the trash thinking someone would laugh finding a Buster Sword there. But I will never do that again. Props have been small ever since. Shield Phantom Hive, on Mobile PLS. Don't hurt me. I was at Sakura Connor's him for a day, and I had planned a photoshoot for Black Butler Cosplayers. It had amazing attendance, and I was very excited. But some problems just had to raise their ugly heads. The spot I had requested for our photoshoot, from the guy who organized them at the time, still had a photoshoot going on in it, so we didn't have space for the 50 people I had, and due to my fear of confrontation I didn't want to ask the people in our space to leave. While I was standing around as everyone gathered I was trying to figure out what to do, and it was probably a couple minutes after the start time of the photoshoot when some guy in a Sebastian cosplay suddenly said all the shields go up for a picture. At first I thought maybe a passerby wanted a picture, but I soon found out that this guy was stealing my photoshoot. I know I should have made an announcement that I was there and was working on it, but I was anxious and worried about the space issue. I panicked. I sent a friend to ask him to stop, but he just said I'm helping the host. Dude, I never asked for your help, what the fuck? So I left my own photoshoot and cried for a bit before quickly changing out of shield. Now I just get embarrassed when I cosplay him Plus the Black Butler fandom doesn't exactly have a good reputation in general. Definitely Princess Luna from My Little Pony. It was my only experience doing a prop, and it came out really cool. Emo for 2014, faking around, not even looking at tutorials, but this was the height of Britney popularity, so I got stopped every 5 seconds for a picture. It's all great and good, and was the only time I've ever had anyone take my photo. BC, I'm not skinny anymore, but the dress I got for her was too long even once hemmed, so I had to hold it up to walk around, and there were a lot of stairs at the convention center. The dress also had a built-in corset, and I had another corset on over that. It was literally so difficult to breathe, and was my only costume for the whole weekend. Because I was soloing it, the staff was upwards of 7 feet tall and 20 pounds. I had to maneuver the giantess thing through the doorways. It was her cutie mark plus wings, so it had a wingspan of about 3.5 feet, plus find a way to hold my dress up so I wouldn't trip over it. Point, it was rad as hell, but I got a severe anxiety attack in it and couldn't breathe because of the corsets, so I damn near passed the fuck out in the middle of the con floor, and no one was giving me space either, and kept stepping on my dress and train, and damn, it was an absolute nightmare. No face, not because of the cosplay, but because I was basically assaulted at a haircon by a crowd in front of a crowd. There was this nice white wall with sunny windows that was a perfect place for taking pictures, so lots of photographers hung out there. I was standing by the wall getting pictures taken of my cosplay when suddenly a group of 6 guys, around age 20 or so, all dressed as Deadpool, surround me and start jumping in monkey circle. One of them forced his way behind me, grabbed me by my hips, and started violently humping my ass, and would not faking stop or let go. My costume had very limited movement, since it was not only slim and made it hard to move my legs to walk, but it also had a wire headpiece to take me from 5 feet 1 to 6 feet 6, and only a small veiled square of fabric that I could see out of. I struggled for several seconds to get away while the photographers laughed their ass off and took more pics. When I finally got out of his grip, I ran to the bathroom, where I took off my costume, cried, and tried to rationalize leaving after buying such an expensive ticket. Haven't put no face back on since, despite all the hours I spent making him. Anime conventions in the Midwest are maximum creepy, and I will never go back. I've got about 2, and never one will be done again until I can revamp them into a better version, because they were faking bad. Tavrasnet from my first con cosplay, sheet tie fabric horns. Symbol was so faking messy looking. Awful Party City wig I had done my best to style. Unsealed sheet tie grey face paint that I lost most of due to a Fuddruckers bacon cheeseburger. However, props to all the nice older Homestucks who told me my cosplay was good and were super nice to me, even though I looked a mess. I was 12ish at the time, so it meant a lot. Larton Krebsley did it for Halloween in middle school, and it was a mess. His red coat was a cut-up shirt sheetily sewn to another, and they weren't even the same shades of red. Had to have my dad tie the tie. Shirt was just all messy, and it made the whole thing look so faking sloppy. Didn't help, I yet again attempted to use a sheet tie Party City wig to replicate his manga hairstyle. You can imagine how well it worked. Not to mention the whole cosplay was super faking hot. No one knew who I was anyways. There's not one I wouldn't do again, but there's one that came pretty fucking close. Quiet from MGSV. You can probably guess why, but in case you don't know who Quiet is, she wears basically a bikini and ripped tights, so it's the creeps I dressed as Quiet. People are gonna stare. I'm not oblivious to that, and staring is fine, whatever, but don't do weird stuff please. MCM Comic Con London Saturday. I was with only my girlfriend for the whole day, so the creeps took that as open season. People who didn't know who I was dressed as asked me for a picture. Not too bad, but it felt a little weird. I had people following me around, and one guy trying to separate me from my friend. That one should have probably have been scarier, and would have, if I was less of a cocky little beach who doesn't fear death. I had some guy try and take pictures of me. I don't mind people taking pictures with me, or having me pose for one at all, but I either want them to ask, or to at least do it when I'm posing for other people, so they know I'm cool with it. Not when I'm just sitting around having a rest. Dude was about 20 feet away taking pics. When I noticed him, He turned around to act like he wasn't doing anything, so I left it. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Then he did it again. It was unmistakable. When I turned around the second time, he turned and walked in the opposite direction. One guy would not leave me the fuck alone. After he took a picture of me, I was trying to go home, and he kept telling me to stay, but I literally had a train to catch, and was so tired had a nip slip, and the guy who let me know didn't let it go. He kept describing it even minutes after the fact. I thanked him for letting me know, but he just kept talking about it and saying shit, like I'm not complaining, and favorite outfit of the day not, because he knew who I was. He didn't, but yeah, no. MCM Comic Con London Sunday. This day was a lot better, since I hung out with the Venom snake I met on the Saturday, and most of the creeps backed off. Went to the Cyberpunk showcase, and the guy directing us to our seats, who might I add, was at least 50, old enough to be my dad, looked at me and loudly said, making my day, please don't. I had someone hug me for way too long. I mean at least a minute and a half. I tried to let go, but he just hold on and whisper in my ear I could do this all day. No thanks. He only hugged my Venom's neck for a few seconds, and I got a minute and a half point. While a lot of it was super sucky, most of the Metal Gear fans I met were super kind and respectful. It was mostly the creepy minority that stuck with me though. Sorry. No matter what some were like, the non-creeps were also sweet, and I had an amazing time overall. So many people looked like they were scared to ask me for a picture, so I let them know that I was super happy to do it. It was so fun, and I'll be back there in May. I'm already super excited, haha. Anything BNHA related, it's hard to appreciate all the hard work, because you're constantly bombarded with 13-year-olds who don't know anything about unspoken con rules. You get glomped, you get chased, people stop you, even when you say you're in a hurry. Never dread anything more than hearing some random deku shout my character's name from across the room, and come running towards me full speed. I don't mind them having fun, I don't mind their casual cosplay stuff, and I don't mind that they want to talk to me. They just haven't been going to conventions long enough to know what's socially okay and what's really not good. It makes the con really hard to enjoy with friends, because you're just constantly getting swept up by a bunch of babies. And they're all so dramatic. One time on girl had to come sleep in my room the day I met her because she was rooming with some people who were manipulative 13-year-olds and brought stuff to with. It's just very sad that when you cosplay something as universally good as that, you're so busy being attacked by younger kids with no respect for space or time, and not people who you can really enjoy being around. I will never cosplay a character I didn't really like 3 years ago. I cosplayed a character from Love Live. It was really mainstream that time. I feel like I cosplayed the character because it is mainstream in the community, not because I really like the character. I feel the hype and excitement when I got the costume though. However, it does not feel really worth it after the event and photo shoot because kawaii and idol type characters are not my cup of tea. I felt pressured by what I see in social media because of the cosplayers I follow were cosplaying Love Live characters that time, and I felt being left out for not cosplaying it. Until now, I feel kinda bad that I left myself be influenced from what I see in my fellow cosplayers, and having the feeling of being left out made me appear like I'm someone trying to fit in. I watched the series to be able to know the character, but I just watched it for the sake of cosplay, not because I really like the anime. Point, I wish I could get back the money I spent to the costume. Anything Homestuck. I did a few Homestuck cosplays when it was at its peak years ago, so right before many of the seal your body paint rules at cons were heavily implemented, cause of this fandom, and before people started really making arm socks. Fandom had no manners and were obnoxious as hell. No sense of personal space or respect for props. Won't ever be painting my whole body ever again. I wasn't even the worst of the group, and yet I was miserable. I did a group ancestor group cosplay where I was the teal one. God, it's been so long I've forgotten names and stuff, and I only had to do my face. Having your whole face covered in tones of grey body paint doesn't allow you very much ability to sweat. More so when it's sealed with baby powder and hairspray. Also refuse to do group photoshoots anymore because of that group. I wasted literally an entire day of con waiting on the group who invited my girlfriend at the time. She was dressed up as Matuna, so she had the heaviest helmet and tight morph suit, and I, because none of them understood time management and didn't apparently actually communicate where to be to everyone. So my whole Saturday was wasted only to get a few photos. They looked great, but not worth it at all. Blade of Marmora Keith from Voltron. I poured hours and hundreds of dollars into a completely handmade cosplay, including designing and sewing the bodysuit, armor, and lights. Had some less than pleasant run-ins with other Voltron fans, but my cosplay contest experience really solidified it for me. I entered a not very well run cosplay contest at a small-ish con, and was waiting with a friend for it to start. I was approached by a Cher cosplayer in a maid dress, who was also entering. They sat down with me, I guess because we were cosplaying from the same series. They asked for a photo together. That's chill. I try to make small talk with them about their cosplay, because I like hearing about others' artistic processes. They immediately started going off about their friend who ditched them, and they started unloading about their sheet tie day, how they had a panic attack because of their friend, and how sheet their own cosplay was. Cool. Fine. Maybe they had a bad day. Then their friend in question joins us. They start yelling about how somebody must have stolen their mini body pillow charm out of their right EA bag because they can't find it. My own friends have left at this point, and I'm now unwillingly part of an argument between these two people, whose names I don't even know. Cosplay contest happened. No real judging or costume inspection happens, and they give the person with the biggest armor first place. Then I fell out of the fandom after that point, and ended up giving that cosplay to a friend who wears it regularly now. Don't laugh at me, okay? Sans from Undertale. This cosplay was done a few years ago, back when the game was reaching peak popularity, and before the character reached true meme status. The problem with cosplaying a well-loved character at peak popularity is fangirls with no boundaries. I had my friend, at the time, we are dating now, with me, dressed up as Cher. For those of you who don't know, Cher is ambiguously gendered and only referred to as they in the game. So this girl, dressed up as Alice, walks up and starts talking to us, so of course I respond in character. Then, with seemingly no warning at all, she gets on one knee and just kinda proposes with a ring pop. I was over 18, and she seemed to be about 16, so I was kind of uncomfortable. My friend tells her to get back up, and she does, while saying yes ma'am, sir. I come from Wonderland, so I don't understand gender. See, y'all don't call my friend an it, and propose marriage to me. I just about punted a child that day, but tickets were expensive, and I didn't feel like getting kicked out. Robin. This was a few years ago, and I was proud of my Robin cosplay, and this was maybe the third year wearing it. I had recently gained a tiny bit of weight in my stomach, and I was really self-conscious about it. But I wore it anyway, and had a good time. Until I walked past the booth for Steven Silver, character designer for Kim Possible. Well, more accurately, when I got tagged in a post on Facebook by a friend, who saw that Steven Silver had drawn a caricature of me, and guess what he emphasized? Turns out he'd snapped a pic of me as I was walking by, and posted that as well. The other two caricatures were of a very large man in a Lilu cosplay and an older black woman, in plain clothes wearing shorts, where he emphasized her as in a clearly fat-shaming way. Well, comments were instantly flooding with some pretty hurtful stuff, to say the least. He also straight up said that cosplay was consent in the comment thread to someone who was calling him out. The Leela cosplayer came and picked up his drawing, very excited about it, and I'm sure he felt pretty vindicated, even though the situation was a little different. Long story short, I reported him to Comic-Con, SDCC, and he sent a very non-apology and finally took down the pictures. It was a very fun costume to wear, but now I'll never do it again, because I won't be able to get the image of his drawing out of my head, or how it felt seeing those comments. Never did cosplay even a little bit, but as a marine a few of us were asked to go in full gear to a charity run complete with unloaded rifles. The idea was it would show that our troops supported childhood leukemia awareness, or whatever. Prior to and immediately after the run, people kept wanting to hold my rifle, which was a real, no sheet, firing Machinigan B issued gear that cost more than I made in a month, and for which I would see myself horrifically punished if I lost full control of for even a split second. C, did I mention, was a real gun. Most people just wanted to pose for photos, which honestly, being forced to be there, and having just ran 10k in about 75 pounds of armor and gear, I wasn't terribly enthusiastic about. I was sweaty, tired, and wanted to just get back in the sheet tie government van, and take my helmet off. Not pose for photos every 3 steps, and have to politely smile at nod at an unending, repeated chant of thank you for your service. Then there were the grabbies, people who very clearly felt like I was there for their own private entertainment. They'd snatch at my gear or rifle, and I'd have to restrain myself from punching them. The absolute worst was this 14-year-old kid who decided to do repeated fake punches at my face, lunging at me to snatch at bits of my gear repeatedly, and his horribly misguided parents who thought it was all in good fun taking pictures and video of it all, and actively encouraging him. I literally wished I'd been issued live ammo to deal with this satanic ADHD child who was dogging me for a good 20 minutes as I tried to squeeze my way through the crowd towards the exit. I'm not kidding. He was literally all over me as I was trying to leave, and his parents were like, "We're gonna have the coolest Instagram account in the neighborhood." I imagine it's what cosplayers run into, and you couldn't pay me enough to do it again. Wasn't exactly a cosplay, but a role for a play, where I had no say in the costume. I was the fake Nightingale from the H.C. Andersen fairy tale. Since I'm pretty big, they made me a huge dress with huge big wings and feathers sticking out everywhere, and it was heavy, and they had not thought of the fact I had to walk up a small spiral staircase from the makeup room to the stage, and it was a heck of a tight fit, and I worried about ruining the costume every night. Then I had a scene where I should stand still because I'd broken down as part of the play. I stood on this rolling box that was like the box I came in, and I had to stand still on this box that would love to just roll off the stage if it could with me on it. In a costume I couldn't move in any way, and stand still for a heck of a long time. Just the weight of the dress made my legs shake while standing still, and I could always feel the box under me slightly move. And I kept thinking, if I fall off the stage, I'm never getting up. It was ridiculous, I complained, and they told me, it's just for 2 weeks, you'll be fine. And then I just shrugged and went on with it. But I should have complained more, because I was miserable in it. Jim from League of Legends. Don't get me wrong, it's one of my favorite cosplays, but there's so many layers to it. The accelerator on his shoulder makes you feel like you have a deformity and you literally cannot see over your right side. Not to mention that the entire poncho thing is lined in pink fabric that at the time I didn't know how to do a contrasting lining. Thanks to that cosplay, I learned how to do it. But at what cost? Painting all the details on the poncho wasn't easy either. Took me a solid 18 hours with only bathroom breaks and about 6 bottles of fabric paint to do point. Then there's the mask. I attempted to make it out of 3D printing, foam, clay, Werbler, everything, and it just didn't fit my expectations. It's the only piece of that cosplay I commissioned a mask maker to make for me simply because I didn't have the workspace to work with resin and fiberglass. It came out a great cosplay and has been used several times for local league events, but you can't pay me enough money to remake it. Plus it cost me about $1,300 to make anyway. Haven't had much experience in the cosplay scene, but I made a full suit of Master Chief's Mark 6th Mjolnir armor from Halo 3 out of rather heavy metals. Putting it on wasn't that big of a deal, but wearing it for an entire day at E3 2016 was a slog. Helmet had barely any visibility, and it was often hard to breathe. I then mistakenly went to the next E3 in a full Sangheili Ultra outfit made out of more or less the same materials. Only issue is, because elites are normally much larger than the average male, I had to make the outfit large, which made getting in and out of them a pain. In addition to the same issues I had with the Master Chief armor edit. I should probably clarify, when I say the elite armor was hard to get into, what I really meant to say was the armor was made in separate pieces, a direct consequence of going for full-on realism over practicality or mobility, and the size of each piece meant, if I wanted to get into, say, the leg pieces, I'd have to lay them flat on the ground, sit down then shimmy myself into them. Standing up, the leg pieces themselves are about half the height of an average male. Add on the chest piece, shoulder pads, helmet, and energy sword holder. I didn't time it, but my guess would be it took me a solid 20-30 minutes to have it set up and ready for me to move around in it. It's a strange feeling walking from a hotel 3 blocks from the exhibition in a full outfit of armor, while standing a good 2 feet above everyone else. Word of advice: invest in light materials if you want a full set of cosmetic armor. 2. Actually, Yohite from Nabari no OU. I cosplayed him several years after the show aired, so the hype was over, but I had been wanting to cosplay him for a long time because I related to him in certain ways. I also liked his character design. However, when I finally cosplayed him, I was at a different plus better place in my life. And I got slammed with a PTSD flashback. Got really depressed. I could feel my mood change taking it off point Hattori from Fruits Basket. This was one of my first cosplays, and how my childhood friend got me into cosplay. Fruits Basket was how I got her into anime. She was momoji. Unfortunately, due to her religious beliefs, we had a falling out and realized we were just better off not being friends. And unfortunately, Hattori isn't exactly iconic or memorable. Most people don't know who he is on sight. He's more of a group/pair cosplay. With the Fruits Basket remake, I was hoping to find a new group of friends I could be Hattori for, but I moved to Japan right before it began to air. I won't be going to anime conventions for a while. I was 15, and there was an anime convention and I cosplayed as Hinata from Naruto and my older brother went as Chris Hansen. I wasn't prepared to have so many people come up to me and compliment our cosplay and told us that we pulled it off quite well. As I was taking pictures with some of the people, this one dude came up to me, said some creepy shit on the lines of "Lem smash that Asian as and Sasuke. More suck this bean." The surrounding people heard what was going on, and then the guy grabbed my arm and started to tug at me to go with him. At this point, I looked over to my brother and he looked pissed as frick. My brother waltzes over and said, "Hello, I'm Chris Hansen. Why don't you have a seat and we'll talk about how you're trying to solicit this 15-year-old girl." My brother, who does look like Chris Hansen even without the cosplay, started to square up with the creep and the guy straight up booked it after letting me go. I ran and asked the place's security to go after the guy. After telling them what happened, I found out later that creepy dude was taken off of the premises via security and arrested because he had gone to another fellow cosplayer and touched her inappropriately. Why won't I cosplay this character again? Well, I got too thick for it. Even though I can make a new one, I'm just lazy AF, and she seems to be an overdone character. And oh yeah, cause some dude was trying to get his way with a child and touching a cosplayer's no square. Jarline Kyujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Point. It was a couple of years back when I was 16 years old and dabbling in cosplay for the first time. My city had a yearly anime convention and I wanted to do something special for my second year attending. I decided to cosplay as one of my favorite manga characters at the time, JoJo. I made my costume by hand excluding the wig. It was my first time doing this, so my work was amateur at best. Besides that, other cosplayers and convention goers seemed to like it and were very welcoming. I was having a wonderful time until I was put in an awful situation. I was cornered by a guy in the convention elevator. This man must have been somewhere in his late 20s and very unkempt. The way he looked me up and down made me feel uneasy. It was almost like he was trying to burn a hole through my chest with his eyes. I was underage at the time and looked almost younger than I was. I couldn't get out of that elevator fast enough. I ended up leaving shortly after several other instances of harassment from this guy. He made me feel so unnerved whenever I ran into him. I haven't cosplayed much since that awful experience, but I hope I can do it again someday once I feel comfortable with it again. Honestly, homemade cosplays. I've done 2. Basari and SKT Callista from League. Both took me like $150 plus a ridiculous amount of time and effort, and both turned out fairly accurate. Eri was just ultra uncomfortable. It was my first time using a sewing machine or drafting clothes in general. Callista was fine. but it wasn't super recognizable. People didn't know who I was cosplaying, even at the literal semifinals in which SKT was playing. Several people asked me if I was SKT Vane, which is close, I guess, and I had a really rough time with Foamander's Acto knife. The spears coming from her back were 3D printed, and I kept accidentally hitting people with them / people kept stabbing themselves walking into or by them point, but above all, just neither handmade cosplay were nearly as good, not as cost effective as the simpler ones I've scavenged together. Popstar Eri, mostly just finding and assembling pieces, or straight up bought. Dynasty Eri got a way better reaction from other people, and just in general looked way better. And Bunny Girl Senpai Ken Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul, he was my first cosplay, so naturally it was kinda bad, but I had made a Kagoon prop out of pool noodles, but I didn't have time before the con to attach them to my shirt, so I had to bring a bag to hold them up, but the problem was they were digging into my back. It was hard to move, I couldn't sit down, etc. They almost hit a few people in the face, and taking them off if I was cold and wanted to put my jumper on was so difficult. Then the wire started poking out, and it was just a frustrating mess. Also, one of my friends who came to con with me kept criticizing my cosplay like he was a famous cosplayer, has never cosplayed, and it got really annoying. The good thing I got out of this crappy cosplay was new cosplay friends and even a boyfriend who I can't wait to see at the next AnimCon we all go to. Sometimes good things come from bad cosplays. That's part of being a cosplayer. But as long as you don't let them get you down, you can stay strong and keep going. I did Batman Beyond, and I tried to put in wide contact lenses to be as accurate as possible, and it looked cool, but I bought cheap lens to be cost effective, and it took about 10 minutes of pain to get them on, followed by walking around the con floor for about 15 minutes almost completely blind, relying on the colored blobs of my friend's brightly colored jacket to guide me. I have been told that I looked super cool, but I wouldn't know point after I had my fun. I proceeded to make my way to the restroom where I tried to remove the lenses, to no avail. It took me almost an hour, I think. My friend tried, he couldn't get them. I'm pretty sure I pinched and flat out bruised my eyeball. Eventually, after taking off my entire costume in the struggle to get these things out of my eyes, I succeeded, reapplied my MacGuffin costume to the best of my ability, and went for a more Michael Keaton from the movies, just with some black grease paint around non-contact lensed eyes look. Mind you, looking like I just bawled my eyes out. Point that being said, when some kid, like 6 years old, genuinely thought I was Batman, like just referred to me as Batman in amazement. Made it all worth it. Point still wouldn't do the contact lenses again though, lol. I've got another Vader story point. When I was in high school, this one senior convinced the headmaster to hold a May the 4th event. Students that dressed up could stay in the cafeteria after lunch to watch A New Hope. Obviously, I had to do something. It was really a last-ditch costume put together the night before, consisting of a really nice helmet, a black t-shirt, and a dark cape. I expected to be one of the dozens of Vaders, but I was surprised to find that most people were just wearing capes or hadn't dressed up at all. I had brought a lightsaber, since the school hadn't said anything about them, which was fine. Some problems obviously arose. First off, the cape was made for a grown man. I'm 5 feet 2 inches. Secondly, I can't really see out of the helmet, no one can hear me, I can't stop sweating, and I was challenged by every person that had brought a lightsaber. Being one of 2 Vaders in the entire school, I decided that I had to commit. I didn't take the mask off all day, even holding a juice box to his voice modulator at lunch, but otherwise not eating anything. I watched A New Hope through these tiny little holes in my mask, and I swore that I would never touch that helmet again. Plus, the school informed me that the mask was enough to distract my classmates. Scarecrow from the Arkham Asylum game. Most of the costumes I wear are explicitly female characters, so when constructing this one I didn't want to make myself look like a man. Well, I guess I unintentionally made a sexy version of Scarecrow. I didn't think it was particularly sexy, it was pretty much his normal costume, but I used bandages to make a sort of tube top, since he is shirtless. A lot of creepy dudes following me around and asking me on dates. My face was completely covered, so I guess they couldn't tell I was 16. I wore the costume again when I was 19 and still had some problems, but not nearly as much. I also had a group of teenagers keep poking my mask between my eyes and it hurt so bad. I had constructed the mask poorly, so the gas mask part had to be higher up than you're supposed to wear it, so it dug into the bridge of my nose really bad. I tried to ask them to stop, but it was in a crowded part of the hall at SDCC, so between me wearing a mask and how many people were there I don't think they could hear me and neither could anyone else. Eventually my sister noticed and told them to fuck off, but that was super stressful. I never want to wear that costume again, unless I can make the mask significantly better and actually go through the effort of making myself look more like a man. I've done a few wing cosplays and wings are pain in the ass. Never wearing a wing cosplay again. While I loved making wings, the sheer discomfort of wearing them makes it not worth it. I had a girl grab my first set and yank one wing down so she could look at it closer, then got beachy when I told her not to do that. Another time a guy was running at full speed across the lobby and slammed into me, then kept running as I stumbled and nearly fell over, weighted down by the 4 wings on my back. There's not way he didn't see me. My costume was massive. I've told photographers I could not shoot outside because wings do what wings do, which is grab even the slightest wind and cause me to overbalance. They didn't care and dragged me outside for shoots where I had to have someone crouch behind me to help me stay standing up when a breeze came along. I broke a wing first day ever con due to an outside shoot where the wind picked up and whipped a wing out of position and it rotated to the other side of my body. You can't go down some steps or escalators in them, and getting into an elevator in a large costume at a crowded con is a nightmare. Crossplayed Italia's Germany beach scene with my friend, who was crosplaying Italy, is half a foot shorter than me, and an amazing cosplayer. She helped me with mine. I cut my hair, bleached it, wore blue contacts, and was super stoked for my very first Italia meetup at a popular anime convention in a major city. The hugs, man. Oh crap, did people want to touch me? My friend is a way better cosplayer than I, but for some reason apparently she and maybe because I had been training all summer, martial arts, though had just got done with a 6-week boxing intensive. I looked exactly like some fanfic created renditions of the characters. Think super muscly femme for Germany, plus my attitude matched because the more stoic and standoffish I was, the more people felt I was portraying the character and wanted to glom me. Never again. Not saying there weren't fun moments, and for the most part and I played into the photos people wanted to take, did push-ups, shouted at her to work harder, and recreated scenes and all that, though I dunno. I wasn't prepared for the Hitalia fandom despite being a huge fan. I just had never known anyone else that into it, and wasn't aware that like, people touching you was part of it. And I was obviously younger, lol. I wish I could do a boxing intensive at this point in life though. Energy wanes a bit as one ages apparently, so had a bit of trouble standing up for myself. Shy giant syndrome, not that I was shy, just didn't know what to do and didn't want to break any cardinal cosplay rules. I was pretty new to it all. I still want to do a Finland cosplay. I'm half Sami, and it is the closest the world of Italia gets to my heritage last I checked, though I'm not sure I would go to a convention Italia gathering in full regalia again. I feel like I can't limit myself to just one point. Anything that has a bulky helmet, they get too hot and you can't see. God help you if your helmet has an integrated visor / goggles. The humidity build up is a chore and everything gets progressively more challenging. Anything with a cape, people pull on capes because people are dicks. Anything hot. Conventions tend to be crowded and hot, and I need some breathability built in. You can, if clever, integrate a normal canteen and hose, as though it were going to a gas mask, into your costumes, so you can get cold water whenever needed. Anything requiring me to make footwear. Fuck it's so very much. Making shoes / boots is hard, and people who do that are extra awesome. It is not a skill I will ever possess. I would describe any that I made as terribly uncomfortable, rather warm, and downright dangerous near an escalator or stairs. Anything I can't make in a durable fashion. I know it's just gonna get used a few times a year and stuff, but I've seen people with delicate mechanics in their cosplay lose their entire convention to fixing their costume instead of having fun. I feel bad for them. Cosplaying Deku from Boku no Hero takes the cake. Now, in regards to Deku, it's quite self-explanatory. Being very small, the same height as Deku, 5'5". I've been unlucky when it comes to bigger people harassing me in particular. I've had grown men pick me up multiple times. Note I was doing Deku's gym uniform and had my head slammed by accident against a pole in the process during one of these incidents. I've also had young teens scream at me, Bakugan cosplayers threaten me, and genuinely scare me, although they were all playing. The amount of times I've had creeps ask me to do ship photos like make out with my other friends cosplaying with me, in particular my Chaco and Bakugan cosplay friends, is ridiculous and gross. Obnoxious teenagers fighting over Bakudeku and Ochadeku in front of me certainly is an experience LMAO. One time at a con my group that were cosplaying the entire class of 1A was abused all day, from the morning till evening. We had a huge mob after us, which unfortunately meant we had no time to eat, hydrate or even sit until security was called to shoo away the mob for us. I finally retired my Deku cosplay sadly, after how many times I've been physically assaulted, verbally abused and tailed by wards of loud kids, creeps and cringy teenagers. My friends and I used to do a Ghostbusters group. Eventually, after going to a few cons, we started being asked to make appearances, host panels, etc. We were in it initially just because we enjoyed building things together and loved the movie. We did this for a few years and stopped in 2016. I have 8 variations of proton packs and 6 different pairs of jumpsuits, 10 ghost traps. Eventually we hooked up with some builders that had a legitimate Ecto-1 replica, not just a van with stickers. I'll never wear it again. Poncho. Are you thinking we stopped because we didn't like the reboot? Far from it. We were the first group to make a replica of the reboot's jumpsuit. What got us to stop was Sony's Ghost Core division empowering little-minded people into convincing themselves they were employees of Sony. We had other groups from across the state calling promoters and saying they were the official representatives of the area, telling them they would bring massive displays, replica vehicles, and free promo merchandise for guests. Of course promoters accepted the offer. Those things never turned out though, because the groups making the calls have cardboard props, a white station wagon with an Nike table on top, no promo merch to give, and no gas to even get to the event point. Everything we had built towards kind of just went away, and with rising arrogance of the fandom as a whole, we just dropped it. It wasn't fun anymore. Now fair enough, our group had always had a parody aspect of ourselves online, and there were those that weren't self-aware enough to understand. But by 2017 the fandom had shifted to a majority of those types. Instead of people doing research and hard work to have the best props you can get, it was taken over with people doing the cheapest builds to qualify for free shit from Sony. If you give them tips or criticize, you're villainized. If you praise a $600 film accurate replica proton pack from Anivus instead of a $60 one from Spirit Halloween, then you were the one being called stupid. The socially maladjusted now steer the fandom. TLDR, I'm a tiny person who likes to feel tall. Didn't buy the tall shoes I needed for a cosplay in time, and ended up messing up my heels. Roy Mustang from the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood series. The hair was easy enough, and the cosplay itself gave me no problems. No, ladies and gentlemen, the problem was in my jeans. For context, I'm a tiny person, 5 feet 1 inch with shoes on, but I always wanted to cosplay a male character to see if I could pull it off. I had already cosplayed Ed and wanted to challenge myself. Roy would be my first cosplay of an actual man, rather than a boy. It's weird when I do panels and my character is significantly shorter than everyone else. Even just walking around and having to look up at people sucks, because I feel like it makes me look less like my character, unless the character was short. So me, being the genius I am, decided to put high heels in my shoes and just wear them that way for the rest of the day. The first 10 minutes were fine. The next 20 minutes started to hurt. Within the hour I was sitting down whenever I got the chance. And I was literally at the point of tears within 2 hours. But I'm not a quitter. And I wore those damn things for another 3 hours. Cause damn it, it's for the cosplay. Con crunch hurts lives, and apparently heals. Spread the word. I would dress as Nora again, but would actually spend the money and buy a costume than make my own. I got a $1 oversized clearance sleeveless shirt from Walmart, a poodle skirt from a Halloween store, which a friend of mine was very happy to remove the poodle and shorten it, and a black jacket from Ross. For those who don't know, Nora has a heart-shaped hole in the shirt of her dress. So I cut our ear hole the best I could and cut it a little too low. So I put on a tank top underneath and used like 30 safety pins to make sure that the heart was high enough. We later went to my work to grab my paycheck before the convention we were going to, and after a talking with a coworker, my boyfriend at the time, told me to pull up my shirt. My coworker was staring at what he could see of my chest through the hole. Thankfully I had no other issues for the rest of the day, and the rest of the week I cosplayed as different characters, but the shirts had no holes in them. So, what did I learn? I'm definitely going to buy an actual costume and leave the homemaking to the professionals. My old Froppy hero cosplay. I've sold her since last year, but I was sick of being called N-word Froppy and being asked really gross and perverted questions about my long tongue by older and creepier dudes like seriously Froppy is like 15 years old, and damn it I was 16 when I cosplayed her, so that was only even more disgusting. And age aside, me telling you I'm a minor shouldn't be what makes you stop your perverted crap. That goes for any random cosplayer slash person you don't know, you weirdos. And as for the racist fricks, that also made me decide to stop cosplaying one of my favorite characters. You can frick off and leave your annoying opinions elsewhere. I can cosplay whoever I choose, and yes, saying the N-word to anyone be they black or another pock is racists. I'm black but a Hispanic Denki cosplayer got randomly roped in with me and was called N-word Denki too, and thinking it's a slur that on my defines black people is even more ignorant point honestly. That fandom in the cosplay just attracted too much toxic energy towards me. I'm glad I sold that cosplay and left for good. Even though it's hands down my favorite cosplay I've ever made, I don't think I could ever bring myself to wear my Yubaba/Haku to a con again. My previous experience was miserable. I was in a full Victorian gown, high collar, long sleeves, many layers, a corset, stockings, a giant wig, and had an 8 feet long lifelike Haku puppet attached to my back. All this in the dead summer in NC Point. It was a mixture of being unbearably hot with the yak inside not being much help. It was almost impossible to walk 5 steps without being surrounded by a horde of people for photos, which made everything from eating, bathroom breaks, or any type of schedule impossible. Don't get me wrong, I love people asking for photos and wanting to handle Haku, but when you feel like you're going to pass out from the heat, starving, your arm is screaming from supporting your dragon's head all day point, and your bladder is about to burst, it can get a little frustrating and overwhelming. I was also involved in the contest later that night, so I couldn't change out of it until around 9 PM. We'd been there since around 11:30 AM, since a hotel was too far from the con. I really pushed myself too far to the point that I was so sick. I have lupus, so I'm essentially mildly allergic to the sun/heat, and saw the next day that I couldn't bring myself to go back wearing my less cosplay, and I'm so thankful I didn't, because I could barely handle walking around the vendors in flip-flops. I think if I do ever decide to bring Haku out again, I'll make myself a casual Chihiro to balance out the comfort level. Until now, my best boy has a home hanging from the ceiling in my living room. Endpoint N. I once tried cosplaying, forgot which one, but I remember it being very hard to not show cleavage. I had to pin the top connecting to my chest. I cosplayed because I went to a party. I was with a guy who supposedly liked me. I wasn't drunk yet, so I was messing with the pin because I thought it would come off. So I tried to put it back on before I showed cleavage. So after that I was with the guy who supposedly liked me. Let's call him Matt. Matt and I were at the party in a more or less populated room, and I was the only female, 2 other guys in the room. Turns out when I was messing with my pin, it made it loose even though it wasn't. The pin fell, and like 30 minutes later, I caught them looking. I got drunk, and we had a threesome. Worst night ever, considering they were my friend's brothers. I still have the costume and we all remember it somehow to this day, because someone walked in and filmed us secretly. Then that beach showed us like a month later, after she filmed the video. Nasty.